All right, today we're here to discuss if the government should more strictly regulate the media during a national emergency. And here to discuss this today, we have Farzona, and then Alexander, and then we also have Omidion, all from Tajikistan. So to begin with, why isn't it important that the media be free from government control?
I think it's a very difficult to discuss. Should be just like the media should be just like free from the government, or should be the government strictly regular? I think in some cases the government must strictly regular. In some cases the freedom, the just like media must be free. For example, if we give all the power to the government, and if the government regular the mass media strictly, it will be just like it means that the government is a dictator to the mass media. What the government want, the mass media will or inform the peoples about that. And in other cases, if the press will be free, without any censorship, without any control of the government, the incorrect information will be right in the press. Because, as you know, every press company just like they are compete with each other, and every try to be the first, and every try to be the best, and they will try the information not to think that if it's just like the incorrect information, if it's a wrong information. I think if we talk about the freedom of press, we must think about the sometimes the press called the watchdog of the government.
Mm-hmm.
If the watchdog of the government, the press must be free. The press must be inform the peoples about what the government are doing. If the press will be just like dictator, it can't inform the peoples about the right informations. I think the freedom, the press must be free, but with some of the limits and with the government control. But the government mustn't go too far.
I think how can Iskandar say the freedom of press, it's they have this freedom, but during the national emergency they must be give to citizens right correct information, and during the national emergency government must give to them some limits, but not go over a lot of limits, because if they have no limits in this time, they can write incorrect information to the citizens. And how can we see 2 days ago some journalists write about Turkmenistan president. He is died, but he is only died yesterday. It's very dangerous for them, because maybe it will be war between this country, between that countries.
I'm agree with points of Farzona, because there will be some limits in freedom of press too, and the reporters must know the limits. If they know the limits, it will be nice, and the government should not more strictly regulate the media. But if the reporters they don't know the limits and write many things and many bad things in the newspapers and inform them to people, it will be bad, and the government should more strictly regulate the media during national emergencies.
Can I add something? As Farzona said, there must be limits. Yeah. Now in the world between the democratic country, the most problem is where to draw these lines, the red lines.
Mm-hmm.
In some countries, these lines are drawn very small. In some countries, they're drawn very just like large. For example, the most censored country in the world is North Korea. The reporters will go to the jail for they reported if they write, for example, about the government. They will go to the jail. The journalists are the ears and the eyes for every person in the world, because there are some persons that they can't hear. They will see the movies, they will see the news from the media, and they will just like conclude what's going in the world. Or some persons they can't see, they can hear what's going in the world. I think the journalism, the just like mass media must be free without any censorship.
Without any censorship?
Yeah.
So earlier you guys all talked about how limits are important, and the government should put some limits on the media. So what would be some examples of limits that the government should put on the media?
I think limits must be not too many, but in that times when the journalist writes about some president or some other people and bad words, that there will be some limits in this case, and they must not write bad words. I think this.
In other case, limits must be in writing the incorrect information about
Yes.
some person,
Right.
individual person, because in some countries the newspapers you can write just like insulting words about the person, but it's not good, and here must be limit, not writing the incorrect information that it could be just like it could be make the panic between the peoples.
So, yeah.
How can we say many months ago there was in French a reporter write about Islamic prorogue Muhammad about bad words, and there was so big panic in Islamic countries if reporters write this kind of words about another prorogues, about another religion, it will be bad for that country, and it will be war between this Islamic country and between a democracy country. I think in these times they must have limits, no so big, but lines between religions, president, government, and other countries.
Right. So you think that when some French papers published the cartoons of the Prophet, that wasn't okay.
Yes.
So when we talked about when the government can go too far and how it limits the media, but when can the media go too far? Is it just mainly in when they report inaccurate information?
Yeah, the media will go too far. For example, one reporter is going and in the for example the street going at some events. The journalists will go too far if they write their own opinion what's going. They see that there, for example, is a fire. They mustn't write. For example, is it fire? It's going fire, but they must just like the journalists must be noisy. They must give question for now that what's going, what's the reason of this events, and then they write. In this, it will be just like, as I said, incorrect information that it could just like be panic between the peoples, and in these cases, the journalists will go too far from the regular of the government.
Right. So when the journalists write about something that ensues panic, I think
Yeah.
there should be limits on that. So what is the role of the freedom of press during national emergencies?
The role of freedom of press during national emergency is to write correct information about these emergencies, and not to panic between people, between citizens of that country, and not to write incorrect informations, not to inform them incorrect informations, and they must in the end of their all information they must write nice
Hopes.
hopes. Yes, they must write it will we hope it will be over, and this and like these words.
I want to add the responsibility of the journalists of the mass media during the national emergencies is, for example, if the journalists know that the next day will be the earthquake, they must write about that if there will be an earthquake, what the peoples must do to keep the safety, the life safety, what they must do. I think they must more informed about the security to the peoples during the national emergency.
So talking about national emergencies, that brings up the issue of who gets to decide what a national emergency is, because it's a very subjective topic. And
I think who decides is it a national emergency or not? I think it must be and citizens and government, because when it will be when it was decided only president or government, it will be. But if be one earthquake or tsunami, that citizens said our president don't give to us this information, and we don't know in the end many people died, and I think one person of the government must come to the one group of citizens, and they must talk about this and said, is it a national emergency or isn't it a national emergency? And citizens must say what we must do and what governments do.
I want to add, to decide what's a national emergency or not, the power must be in the citizens, because the national emergency will bring the citizens' life, and they must be responsible. They have a freedom of assembly. They can form an assembly and to decide what's a national emergency and what's a not national emergency. But and here there must be the government regulate, and the government and the citizen. But most of the power must be in the citizens, I
Good.
think.
So how would you propose that be set up?
Mhm.
Would the government like speak to the citizens, that the citizens
They
just
must
be able
help
to say?
to the peoples.
Yes.
how
Say to
decide.
them when it will be earthquake or something, you must go to this side or do these things, not be panic in between you.
They
And
must give information then.
And in other case, the citizen must be trusted the government, because the government was created by the people.
Mhm.
If they can't trust, why they create the government? The government must help the citizens, for example, to say some problems as the national emergencies. I think it will be in government and the citizens in these situations.
So what about times where a national emergency is created because of the government? So, for example, in Budapest, there were some protests going on because the president lied to the people. Now, what if the president decided that was a national emergency and was therefore allowed to more strictly censor what people said? Couldn't the president decide what the media said during this time where people were protesting against him?
I think that the president mustn't regulate the press during the national emergencies, because the press is free. They must write their own opinion about the national emergencies. If the president just like regulate the media, they will write the opinion of the president. All the journalists must write their own opinion about what's going. They're responsible for their just like information that they give to the people. I think they must be free.
But I think there will be some controls, because if they will be free, they all the
Right, something.
all the journalists will write their opinions, and there will be many opinions and many panics between the people. That's why there will be some controls by government during national emergencies.
So do you think that controls should be different between each national emergency?
Yes, they will be different.
Different. Yes, because national emergency it is different. Tsunami, earthquakes, or
Terrorist attacks.
terrorists. It must be different, I think.
Yes.
Good. So during a national emergency, like what is the responsibility of the government with regards to the media? So what should the government be doing during these national emergencies?
During the national emergency, the government must try to keep a safety the citizens' life. They must inform the people that, for example, if it's going some national emergencies, they must inform that the people can just like people can do something during the national emergencies. They must help for themselves.
I think they must tell to all of the journalists to write correct articles about these national emergencies, and they must be responsible for them.
So during some national emergencies, or some things that could be construed as national emergencies, some corruption has gone on and some scandals have gone on. And traditionally the media they're the people who uncover these scandals and this corruption. So if during these times of national emergency these scandals and corruption is going on, shouldn't the media be able to uncover that? Like, for example, the president in the United States may have wished to decide that the war on terror is a national emergency. However, during the war on terror, like, we've uncovered a lot of scandals and a lot of corruption that's happened during the war on terror. So if there were more controls on the media, do you think that the media would be able to uncover these scandals and corruption?
No, they must not cover this information because the citizens must know about all these all these situations, emergencies of the country. That's why they must not cover these informations.
The citizens must know what's going in their country, and in other case, the government has a responsibility to inform the peoples about the information what the government is doing for the people. But it will be some limits because the government has their own secret that the peoples mustn't know. For example, the military secret that the peoples mustn't know. I think in these cases the government shouldn't let the press to write about these secrets.
But how can we know? How we know in Uzbekistan, all of the reporters have no any freedom. They have no freedom of press. They cannot write about president, about their country, about their government, or they cannot write anything. Only we can say the government dictate to them what they must write. I think here in that country there was more limits. They have no freedom of press.
So what are some ways that the government could regulate the media? But how can we allow the government to regulate the media, but also make sure that the media can still uncover these scandals and the corruption that happens during these times of national emergency? So, like, how could the government regulate that, but still allow the media to uncover these things?
I think when the national emergency, the government must set to them good hopes, and they said to reporters what they must write, not dictate to them, but said to them you must write only correct information, but not do panic between our citizens.
The government must regulate the press during for example, national emergencies. It mustn't just like have the more power. It mustn't strictly regular. It must only to look what the press are writing. Is it wrong information or is it the right information? Only to keep the safety of the citizens' life, I think.
All right, so let's talk about some final thoughts. What are your final thoughts on this debate?
My final fact is today I think during the national emergency in between government and reporters, journalists, it must be a limit. This is my fact.
I think that there will be not more limits in during these national emergencies in media, because the citizens must know about these emergencies. There will be limits, but not more. I think this.
My final opinion about this issue is that during the national emergencies, the media must be free, but with some limit and with some the control of the government. There must be some ground red lines that the press or mass media mustn't cross it. I think it will be just like free and some limits.
Okay, great. Thank you.